everyone, and welcome tonight. Thank you for joining us. Give a few minutes for people to start tuning in and catching. Welcome to this week's episode of TeacherGoals Tech Talks. My name is Alaina Clark. I have my co-host tonight joining us tonight, Heather Brown, and we have our special guest tonight, Jaime Donally. Welcome, Jaime.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. And anyone that's slowly starting to tune in and chime in, if you guys want to share in the comments where you're joining us from and what you do in education. And then throughout the live, if you actually have any questions for Jaime, pop them in and we can always answer those either during or at the end. So to get started a little bit tonight, Jaime, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? What are all the awesome things you do in education?
Okay. I'm here in Texas. I became a teacher here in Texas, although I went to school in California. Lived in a couple different places across the U.S., including Illinois. So Heather, I don't know if we've ever had a conversation about that. But yeah, so started teaching here and went into teaching math and absolutely loved it. And just, it was just like, I don't know, it just fit me. Like I got to learn who I was even more by being a classroom teacher. It just was an amazing experience. Later on, went into instructional technology and I don't know, got the bug. I got the augmented reality bug and learned about it and said, whatever this is, I've got to know everything about it. And then, of course, virtual reality was not too long after that. And then just started sharing with people and sharing all the things that could be done, sharing in my district with teachers, and then expanding that out to conferences. Had an opportunity to work with ISTE on writing a book on augmented and virtual reality in education. And then from there, it's just been like, I don't know, it's a passion project. It's like never ending passion project. Like, what are the possibilities? How should this be used? And what are the practical ways that this should be implemented? So just being part of the conversation, bringing new ideas. And I don't know, it's been a cool journey.
And I love that at all these conferences, you're constantly hosting things. Like at FETC, we had the little, what were they called? Fireside chats, while people could actually walk in and experience the different AR/VR things.
Yeah, FETC was pretty cool. Like we had kind of set up for people to come in and play and explore. But I always feel like going to a session, you hear about this and it looks really cool. You're excited about it. And year after year, I'd come back and it's like, did you do anything? I didn't even know where to begin, which is really what drove me to write the book and feeling like that was an important step for teachers to process, right? But at conferences, I feel like it's the same way. You come, you go and you hear about it, but when does it actually resonate into a classroom? And it really, I think it has to be them doing it. They have to feel comfortable and confident in using it in the classroom. So that, here, come play. But then the fireside chat was geared towards where are they going to, what do they want to do with this? Let's have conversations about what has been done, what worked, what didn't work, just almost kind of like Ed Camp style of conversations around immersive tech, just to get them saying, okay, now I have a plan. So when I go and talk to these companies about bringing in these different tools, or I go back to my district, I have a strategy. I know what I want to accomplish. I have vision here. And it's just kind of setting them up for actual implementation.
I was just kind of thinking of, we have educators that watch, and I think we kind of, because, we're, you're so tech and so many of us are for someone that wants that really if you can just give a basic understanding for someone, what is virtual reality and augmented reality, and almost an example of how that is being used in a school.
Yeah, absolutely. So augmented reality is essentially looking through the lens of seeing your real world, but a digital overlay. So something that kind of enhances or gives an illusion that something exists there. But it is absolutely interacting with your real world, your actual space. So if I have something, walking around in my office, and maybe it knows where those walls are, so it has a boundary. It it identifies people, so it kind of can walk behind the person and then walk in front of that person. So, there's things that are engaging with the real world in augmented reality. Virtual reality is like, hey, everything around me is digital. It might still use your real world, like setting up a boundary of what you get, your playable area, if you will, but virtual reality essentially is completely immersing yourself into something digital. So everything you look at is going to be this digital fake experience, if you will, not your actual world. So it kind of takes you out of the real world and puts you into somewhere else. Now we see times where, mixed reality or what, all the engaging factors of like where this technology is going. So for instance, a Quest 3, you might be able to say, hey, I'm in this headset, this VR headset, I'm in this VR experience, but hey, I want to go into pass-through mode. And now I'm seeing my real world and I'm still interacting with the same content. Those things, that's augmented reality. And virtual reality, you can go back and say, let me no longer look at my real world and just go completely dark into this digital world. So how it's being used in the classroom really varies, I'll be honest. I think a lot of people start off with kind of, let me take in some experiences with content that I know my students need. So maybe they're viewing something in 360. Maybe they're interacting with content in a merge queue, right? Like, I'm going to look and see at what an earthquake looks like. And I'm going to hold that. I'm going to see that come to life in my hand. But then I think they, as they continue to move in this technology, they start building and creating content. So now they're, building games and showing the history and displaying things in their headsets. So, it really is all over the board. And what I love about that is that not everybody's like, yeah, this is what you need to do in the classroom. But instead it's, where are there gaps in the classroom? Where are your students struggling? Where can you really leverage this technology to help support them in their learning? Instead of just saying, hey, they already got earthquakes, but hey, there's a cool experience. Let's just keep bringing them to earthquakes, and it's like, no, it doesn't matter what you're using. If your kids get it, move on. Use the technology to support them where they struggle. And I think that's where it really is powerful.
That's kind of a good point, because when you kind of think about the cool stuff that augmented reality and virtual reality can do, you kind of think of the cool wow factor of it. But I kind of like how you said that, just because it's cool and it's a wow factor, if they already know the earthquakes, move on. And how can you use virtual reality in this concept they're struggling with?
Yeah. And that's honestly, everybody says, what's the one tool, what is the one thing we need to have? And that's where you really get back to the practical use. Because in any technology, if we're just bringing them to the wow so that they can say, I used augmented or virtual reality, why are you using augmented and virtual reality? What is your goal here? And when you really start asking those questions of objectives, that really starts changing what tools that they're going to need. What resources do you have right now that you don't have to go out and buy? Where is the shortest learning curve? Where are the things that are going to be able to hit home now so that you can show proof of concept? And then when you're moving forward, it really does align, directly with what your needs are. But, oftentimes they're just wanting to throw in the tech for the tech. And it doesn't mean it's bad to say bring in that tech, just means it doesn't really, you don't have a goal. You're not really going to hit anything. There's not really a purpose for it.
And I remember you telling this story, and I'm going to let you tell it, but about spelling.
Okay.
Can you explain? I just love this story. This is one of those things that got me. I'm sure you know exactly where I'm going with it. So
yeah, I do. So my youngest daughter, she's 17 now, but when she, at the time, spelling was such a big deal in elementary school, she has dyslexia. And so I did everything traditionally we always do to teach spelling. Oh, Alphonse is on. That's awesome. So I would always be like, okay, this is the way that I was taught. You write it down 10 times, you say it out loud 10 times, you go back and forth, you play hangman, whatever, So I tried every method that I was taught to do to learn spelling, but I also don't have dyslexia. So, we were just like, oh my gosh, it was so much friction, so much frustration. She was crying. I was crying. I'm like, why don't you just focus? I don't get it. Clearly, like, I'm struggling to teach her. Right. And so finally, it was like, you know what, there's this app that just came out, and I really discounted this particular app at the time because, I thought, it's like Hangman. Who needs to do Hangman and augmented reality? Why does that really matter? Well, it is basically like you have these letters trapped in a bubble in augmented reality, and with your device, your iPad or your phone, you go up and you walk up to the bubble, and it pops the bubble, and all the letters spread out. And then you have to go with that device and grab each letter, and you pull it down like Hangman down at the bottom, and you pull them in the right spot, the right order. So they had just released at the time a way for you to type in your own words. At the time, the first release was like, whatever words that they wanted. Well, then it became like, what word do you want? So I put in her spelling word that she was clearly struggling with, that we had been fighting about. And I gave the phone to her. I sat there, and it was the most frustrating experience to watch. I was like, this is such a bad idea. It took her forever to do. I kept seeing her like walking all the way around a letter, and then finally grabbing it, and she put it in the wrong spot. And it would be like, that's, it would turn red. And it's like, then she had to move it to another spot, and that was wrong. And then I was just like, oh my gosh. Like finally she was done. And I was like, oh, thank goodness this is over. All right, so tell me how to spell the word. And she told me, and I was like, okay. So an hour later, I asked her again, and she told me again. And then the next day on the way to school, she told me again. And I go, what just happened? And it really, what really had happened is the spatial learning aspect of it. Of course, anytime we get up and move, there's, you're activating something in your brain that you don't normally do sitting down on a piece of paper. But even beyond the kinesthetic learning, I mean, there is something to be said about the spatial learning. You're learning in your own space. You're seeing content around you in your space. And for her having dyslexia, what they say, and I've heard this since sharing this story, is that they're looking at these letters in 3 dimension, where we look at a letter in 2. So that's why they're flipping it, because they're looking at it from every angle, which is what she was doing in that activity. And I was like, so what you're telling me is my daughter's brilliant, and that we're the ones that need to fix something, and it was like, okay. And then it really, it was challenging for her, because she's walking around and she's making mistakes. But in that challenge, the process, it retained you. When your brain has to work hard for something, it's going to remember that, so it doesn't have to work hard for it again. Whereas we're so like quick and easy, give me the information, but it doesn't mean, I mean, you can go and say, hey, tell me how to spell this. I actually saw a video on this. Tell me how to spell this. And then a class brought out their digital stuff. And then some of the people in the class brought out an actual dictionary. Took them a lot longer with the actual dictionary. And the people that did it digitally had it ready. And they're like, oh, hold on. Don't tell me yet. Hold on to that. And then the person that found it in the dictionary, then they told them what it was. And they was like, okay, now that you've heard that, you tell me what it is. And the person that found it digitally couldn't say it, because their brain didn't retain it, didn't have to work for it. And so, yeah, I think that all of those things in the way that we learn, one, we recognize that our students, they're different. Not everybody's going to learn like we learn. I got to see firsthand how that resonated for my daughter being a spatial learner, and how important that is, because content is not going to be in a textbook. And it's not just going to be sitting there on a flat screen. We are going to see a transition in time to where content and marketing and information is literally everywhere. So, what our students and where we're transitioning to, I think is going to be more aligned for those other students.
Yeah, Alfonso said the cost is a factor, but the biggest barrier is administrators that don't understand the technology and how useful it is. Yeah. They see it as a gimmick. Can you give any kind of feedback on that? So if someone works in a district to where, they have an administrator that kind of sees this technology as more of a gimmick and it's just cool, how would they even kind of approach implementing something like this in their classroom? So
my first book was kind of like, let's win people over. Let's show them what what it's capable of doing, right? The second book was like, what does this look like for the individual learner? And how are we meeting the needs? So we talked about some of the technology and helping people with sight, helping people with hearing, helping people experience things that they can never do, going on a roller coaster for somebody that never can get on a roller coaster because of disabilities, things that like we take for granted. But being able to bring in learning in a way that resonates for all of our students, right? And I can't say every technology resonates with every kid. That's obviously not true.
Yeah.
There are some kids that cannot get in a VR headset. They will have a seizure, they will get sick, whatever it might be. But when we're looking at finding the right tool for the right student in the right situation, that's where we need to be diligent. And I think most administrators don't ever hear those stories. They hear the story about, scores excelled. Like like, prove to me this is a, score thing. But really at the end of the day, when you can hear a story that impacts people, I think that's where we need to be better. We need to be able to share those stories of where it really impacts. I mean, last night I was on a webinar with McGraw-Hill. We're talking about the McGraw-Hill AR app, and there was a teacher on there in Florida who shared how McGraw-Hill was used, the AR app was used with students that that had a disability. And in that disability, they had mentor students that were supporting them. And the teacher that had worked with the students with a disability had said, thank you so much. Well, really, the kids that were most impacted were the mentor students that said, they're just like me. Like they like the things I like, or and it was just to being able to connect with this technology. And for a student that would absolutely have nothing to do with what they might be doing on a screen, but have augmented reality experiences and that resonate for those students, like that, I think is where our administrators, they need to hear those stories. And we all should be accountable for that, right? We all need to do better at sharing the story.
Yeah.
It's more than tech.
Okay, well, we got a question here. What do you see as the biggest challenge school face when implementing AR, VR in the classroom?
Mm-hmm. I think oftentimes they don't have an objective. So they're talking about bringing in a technology without a goal. Like, why are we bringing in this technology? So oftentimes and I do this, I meet with schools all the time. I'll talk to them about like, what are their plans? Where are they going? I'm not doing it for any consulting. Most of the time it has nothing to do with consulting. It's just making sure that whatever direction they're going, they're not just going to some conference, seeing this big booth with all these amazing products. And then they're like, hey, this is going to fix everything. And then that technology is in a closet. That is my goal, is to help direct them to use the technology in a way that's really going to benefit their students. And so sometimes it has nothing to do with purchases at all. It's leveraging what is already out there for free with the technology that they already have in their hands. So, those conversations I think are really critical. And oftentimes, in my opinion, where we fail, because we expect them to have all the details that they don't necessarily have. So I'm happy to support, as people are going in and saying, this is the direction I want to go, contact me. I will be happy to set up a time for us to meet. I'll meet with you. I'm going to encourage you to bring in across the different departments in your district, so everybody's aligned, and making sure that hey, the direction you guys are going, what is your goal here? Where are the struggles? Where are we going to find a big win? Where do you want to go in the future? What should you be planning for technology wise in upcoming years? All those conversations that I think, are necessary to have. And I don't think teachers are really equipped to make all those decisions without knowing all those details. So I think that's where, people like Heather Brown and Alfonso, that they're aware of these technologies, being able to talk to people and saying, here's where we're at, this is where we're going, what are some steps? And I actually have some blogs out there that I've done, EdSurge, I have a blog out there, getting started, what are some key things to consider? Those things are really helpful too, but I think having the chat is really helpful.
Mm-hmm. I love that one of the things that Alfonso just sent us, that he successfully used it during state testing reviews. that is awesome. That is a perfect thing that you can go to admin and say, like, look,
Yeah.
see, on these state tests, it still helps.
Absolutely.
And especially this time of year when like we have state testing in like 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they need to be able to go through and be reminded about content they already covered, right? So presenting it in a new way that you haven't already presented it in, I think is where that's really going to take from like this surface understanding to having a deeper understanding. And most of these technologies are doing that. It's kind of getting to like, why do you do what you do? If we're talking about this, math function, why is that function even important? Well, let's go back to the story of that function and why that even matters. And so when you're kind of going through like getting it deeper, that's, I think, going to be really helpful. And sometimes we don't have a chance to always do that during the school year. And sometimes it is after the standardized test that they're like, hey, let's bring out the ARVR. And it's like, you could have been doing this whole time. But, the pressure and the stress of like every day, can't miss a beat. My husband's a classroom teacher. He teaches science. And every year I'm harping on him. I'm like, why haven't you brought this in? And he's like, because I'm scared. I miss one day. It could throw off their next benchmark exam. Like every day is so planned and the pressure to get them where they need to be like that. I understand that. And maybe you start there. Maybe you start after the standardized test when you're not as stressed about it and you get to see the benefit of it. And then next year you find a way to implement it into, what you're doing in the classroom. But
yeah, if you're nervous about it, that's the perfect time to do it. Get your toes wet and get more comfortable with it and then find the perfect time to use it. Really, it works out that way. Yeah. And you also have a special month coming up. Will you share with us a little bit more about what you do in March every year?
Yes. So, I was talking about kind of the history of doing this. I need to go back and actually look at what year I started doing this. At least 5 years I've been doing 31 days of ARVR and EDU. And the goal is really like, I'm not writing blogs all year long. And it was really just a time to put together the content that I know, all the updates. So every March I'm updating everybody to let them know like, hey, this is brand new, came out. This one has updates that you need to be aware of. Here's some technology that is coming up quickly, so you need to be prepared. So it's really kind of it's almost like a train the trainer model. I want to teach those instructional technologists or, those people that are going out and sharing to multiple districts, equipping them so that when they're going and talking to teachers, they're kind of aware. Doesn't mean every piece of content is relevant for everybody. And that's what I kind of like, because I'll send out a daily email to my subscribers and it will be like, oh, that doesn't resonate with me. But then the next day it's like, okay, yeah, hold on. I needed that. I needed something like that. So I try to vary the content to, really hit home with one. Like if you come out with one new idea, new tool, new resource, like that is a win. And so, it's really just keeping people aware of the latest and even in that, the practical use, because there's a lot of tools out there that I don't show, that I'm not sold on, that I don't feel like it works well in a classroom. I'm not afraid to talk to people about that either. But, you're going to notice some of the big ones at conferences where you're like, why aren't you talking about this? Our school went out and bought all these items. And I'm like, yeah, let me tell you why. I've seen schools buy those items and then they're not implemented. They struggle. They need extensive training. They have to have tons of funds to continue to have subscriptions for things. So there's all these other barriers that they face. So I really share what I'm passionate about, what I know is something that's really supporting the classroom. And hopefully that helps get people started with the right tools.
And what I love is what I end up doing is when you send something out for like middle school social studies or science or whatever, I'm like, I'm not touching that. Middle school kids have cooties to me. I'm not going up there. But I forward it to the teacher and then I run down the hall and say, hey, check your email. I've got to check this out. And then they love it.
Yeah. And that's it. What I love about that, Heather, is like teachers supporting teachers. Like we're just like that. I'm not selling blogs. I'm not there's nothing in there that's like, hey, you have to be this, and you can not be a subscriber at all and you can come to the site and see it. My goal is to equip you with good tools that are available out there and doing the research on them. So, to me, it's just keeping people aware of those things. But Heather's doing the same thing. She's like, I want to equip other teachers with good tools, with good ideas, with opportunities for them to grow. Doesn't mean it means something to me, but it means something to somebody I know it will, that they'll be able to use. So I love that because, that's where people can come together and support other students as well. As opposed to just being, hey, let me show you what I can do. That's not my heart in it. And I know that's not your heart in it either. And I think that's what's really cool about the community is that everybody's willing to support one another.
Yes. And I have to say, I've told Alaina this many times. I consider you like the great connector. Like,
yes, we did. We were talking about that today.
People.
Yep.
Like, you didn't connect me with anyone this past year at FETC, but the one before, you connected me with Deanne. And ever since, like, we're creating problems everywhere we go. We actually are collaborating on several projects here coming up. And one of them, at least, is with DelightX.
Yeah.
Is one of your amazing augmented or virtual reality apps.
Yeah. I will tell you.
Also introduced me to Mary Alice, who we've hosted.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I love her.
She's my bestie for sure. I will say that there'll be some really exciting news with DelightX here soon too. So stay tuned for that. That's, people-wise, really cool news. So good things coming.
That is awesome. I'm very excited for that.
One thing I did want to ask you, because you touched on a little bit about like cost barrier, but if someone did want to kind of start like kind of trying to dive into it a little bit, are there any like, ones you would recommend that you could share with our audience?
Yeah. Well, depending on your device, oftentimes, like I want to know when we're talking about cost factor and budgeting, let's start off with the least amount of friction, right? What technology do you have available to you? It might be a cart in the library of iPads. It might be your students all have Chromebooks, and it might be even a teacher that has her one phone that she can plug in and display something up on the screen, So I think that is, it varies, right? But when we have these conversations, oftentimes they're like, hey, I got this grant, so we need to spend it tomorrow, and it's like, what do we do? We're like, oh boy. But, oftentimes that's like usually where the conversations start. But I really encourage people to start with the technology that they have. So once I know that, then I can make some direction based upon their objective. Like, okay, what students are we talking about? What grade levels? Let's talk about like what has been successful. What kind of tools are you guys using right now? What kind of things are your students excited about? It might be a class that's specific on coding. Okay, so there might be some things that I really want to push you towards, like DelightX and having, or Kai's Clan, or, hey, we only have Chromebooks. Hey, there's a resource out there, McGraw-Hill AR or DelightX, you can build on your Chromebook, So sometimes it's driven by those decisions. Sometimes they have flexibility to know where they're going with that. And, it really kind of depends on that. But I want to start them always, if I can, I want to start them with what they already have and what's free out there. What can they leverage to get started, kind of prove that they have a need to make purchases, as opposed to, let's buy this right off the bat. Let's prove out the fact that your students are excited about it. So there's a lot of factors, I think, involved with that. But again, kind of going back and getting an idea of where they're at. And I will say, Alfonso had said the ARVR and EDU chats, those happened many years. We ran that for 5 years.
Wow.
I want to say that ended maybe 3 or 4 years ago. But that was really our community and Alfonso was a part of that. Of course, Rochelle was a part of that. We had so many people. Heather, I think you've joined the ARVR and EDU.
I probably was at the end.
Yeah, I want to say that too.
Brilliant.
So we have some OGs out there too, but I mean, it's just, the people that I got connected to at that time, they're still rocking and rolling and sharing, which is super cool.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the last question we always ask all of our guests is, we are teacher goals. So we always like to ask, what is one, it could be a personal, professional goal that you have for this coming year?
You guys should have prepped me on that one.
I know. Yeah, you're right.
Normally we do, and we just started.
Normally we do. It's kind of like, yeah, sometimes we prep, sometimes we don't. So we didn't prep at all.
So I've had this goal that I haven't. Okay, so I have my immersive newspaper. So it's like a Harry Potter newspaper. It comes to life, right? On the paper. So it's all augmented reality. That was a goal cut several years ago that I was like, this is the way I'm going to start presenting material at conferences. I have another goal out there that I've been wanting to do for a little while, but I know how much work it's going to be. And I have a daughter that's homeschooling, and she's getting ready to go into her senior year this fall. So maybe, because she might be going back to her school, and so there might be opportunity there. But I want to start a student academy with Immersive Tech. I want to actually have like application process, get in students, and kind of invest into a group that then could be mentors, and then mentors, and then and essentially set them up for where they're going in college with careers. But just like, I want kids again. I miss being a classroom teacher. I'd love to have an opportunity to work with students and see them flourish in this area with Immersive Tech. And but I know the amount of work that is going to be, and but I think it would be a really cool, like, annual thing that we do. We go through a process of meeting and growing and learning, and then, bring in the next batch each year. So we'll see when that starts. But
I'm already seeing like a virtual summer camp.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll have a in-person opportunity too, they can make it out there, but I'll keep it small. I'll keep it like really investing into individuals, and then grow it from there and have them invest. And I just see like that being very fruitful, and I would love to be a part of something like that. So we'll see.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, well, one thing I want you to definitely share with our audience tonight is that, with your series coming up in March, where can they find that? And where can they follow you and get that information? Because that's going to be soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm seeing some folks asking, could we have a short chat?
Yeah.
Feel free to reach me. And my website is ARVRinEDU. So ARVRinEDU.com. Subscribe. You can actually contact me through my website. Absolutely. I'd love to meet with you and help support. Anything I can do to help. There might be something that isn't even in my blog, and I will research to help support you. So I try my best. Sometimes I get emails that I don't always 100% follow up with. I really do try to connect with people, but if I miss you for whatever reason, just contact me again.
And then also, I want you to tell everyone the name of your books.
Yeah. So my first book is called Learning Transported. I had to remember.
I was trying to find it on her bookshelf back there. She probably has some.
It's at school. It's not on this bookshelf. It's at school.
They're right back there. So
you see my post-it note sticking out of it.
I had to laugh because I had to think about my first book. Learning Transported is the first book, just really kind of diving in.
Funny. You had to think about the title for a second.
I know. And then the second book is the Immersive Classroom. So that one really digs into like, what does this look like on an individual basis, and bringing it in. So
and it's very interactive.
Yeah, every page that has an image, it will actually come to life too. So so will the front cover to the book. Yeah.
I mean, that kind of that keeps someone an engaged reader then, for sure.
Yeah, it's been a cool journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, well, I'm definitely going to be checking out the blog, and I'm going to subscribe, because I'm just honestly just impressed that you put out a blog every day. I'm like, I don't know how you do that.
Video.
I want to be, and a video. I'm ready to be around for the ride of March.
Oh yeah. I don't get sleep, but it is done. It actually gets accomplished, so that's good.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us so much tonight. I loved talking about VR and AR tonight. And for everyone that's watching us, make sure that you go and check out her website and stay tuned for all of the good content she's going to be putting out in March. Connect with her on social media, check out her book. And then we will be back again next week, Thursday evening, for more episodes of TeacherGoals Tech Talks.
With
So,
someone, here,
yes.
get this, with someone that Jamie connected me with.
I'm surprised. You know, I think it's funny is that, like, I feel like Jamie, I think you're like Heather, you have a Jamie, and then like my Jamie is Heather. She's like me to everybody. So like I'm the little, you know, the mentor, and then I'm like I'm the next one up, and yeah, because like she's that for me. So
I love it.
that's what's great though. Like you kind of said in education, like I feel like everyone is kind of like that. Like everyone has that person that just kind of like connects and open doors for you and welcomes you in. So that's always great to hear when everyone. That's the first thing I think she said. She was like, "I love her so much. Like she's this amazing connector." It was like something like that.
Yep.
Yep.
I love it.
Well, thank you again, guys, for joining us tonight, and everyone have a good evening. Bye, guys.
Bye.